So we have The Ridiculous Six, The Magnificent Seven, and The Hateful Eight. I think the Western movie name formula lately has just been an adjective followed by a number. The Magnificent Seven is the newest Western to hit theaters, directed by Antoine Fuqua, and this is a remake of the 1960 The Magnificent Seven, which is a remake of Seven Samurai. Remakeception. This movie has a gigantic cast, including Denzel Washington, Chris Pratt, aka the best human being ever, Ethan Hawke, Byung-Hun, Vincent D'Onofrio, Manuel Garcia-Rulfo, and Martin Sensmeier. You have no idea how many takes that took. This movie follows this recent widower named Haley Bennett, and her husband was just murdered by this evil guy named Bartholomew Bogue, who just took over her town. Haley Bennett's character, named Emma, wants to seek revenge against Bogue and get him and his evil men out of there, so she recruits a bounty hunter named Sam Chisholm, played by Denzel Washington. Sam Chisholm hires 6 other guys to help him on his mission to get rid of Bogue and his men. If it wasn't clear in the beginning, I love Chris Pratt. I have been looking forward to this movie for such a long time because basically anything that Chris Pratt is in, I'm gonna be excited about. And even though I'm actually not a huge fan of Western movies, I knew I had to see this, and man, was it such a fun time. I had an absolute blast seeing this movie in theaters. I've actually already seen it twice now, and it was one of the most fun times I've had in a theater recently. It's a more modern take on the Western, and even though it's a remake of a remake, and it doesn't really offer anything groundbreaking or new, I still thoroughly enjoyed it. This is a movie that's solely for entertainment purposes. It's a popcorn flick that's supposed to just make you have a fun time, and man, does it achieve that. There are some amazing action sequences in this movie, and despite it being a PG-13 flick, it really does not hold back from the action and the violence that happens, and I really enjoyed every minute of action in this movie. There were just so many scenes that just kept me on my toes and blew me away, and I was just like, man, this is such a fun time. There's some really tight directing and cinematography in this movie. Antoine Fuqua did a great job of directing all of this action because a lot of stuff happens in the very last scene where the actual, fight between Bogue and his men and the Magnificent Seven goes down. The choreography of just all the action was really superb because, like I said, there's just so much going on. The cinematography also looks good because all of the location and scenery is just really spot on for the time and looks fantastic. As for the actors and actresses, this is obviously a superb cast. Chris Pratt is in it, so you know it's gonna be good. And Denzel Washington, Ethan Hawke, Byung-Hun, Vincent D'Onofrio, just all these people, they're so great. And Manuel Garcia-Rulfo and Martin Sensmeier, I had never really heard of them before this movie, but they were also great. There was just some great chemistry amongst the entire cast, particularly with Denzel Washington and Chris Pratt, because they're kind of the two main guys of the Magnificent Seven, but just overall, the entire cast, when there were scenes of all of them, eating and goofing around, you could tell that there was some really great chemistry. Haley Bennett's character is also a strong female lead, which I always really appreciate. And Matt Bomer is actually in this movie as well, although he has a very small part, which was disappointing because I'm a huge Matt Bomer fan. I really liked that this was such a modern and diverse cast, and even though it doesn't really make sense, since this is a Western movie and it's why is there an Asian dude there? I really enjoyed that. And also, let me just say, I'm really proud of Byung-Hun and how far he's come in the American film world, because as a Korean American, I've been following him for a while because of my mom, who's a really huge fan of him. And it's man, props to Byung-Hun for getting so far. So while I did really enjoy the modern and diverse cast, I will say that there were some more modern jokes and kind of lines that didn't entirely hit with me because it felt out of place for a Western movie. I see why they did that because it is supposed to be a more modern take on the genre. Another problem I had with the movie, which was my biggest problem with the film, was the lack of major character development. The character development in this movie is very weak due to the large cast, so it's very understandable why they weren't able to flesh out every single character. but I did find it disappointing that we didn't really kind of get more of each character's backstory, because I feel like they could have added some more depth with some of the characters. For example, Ethan Hawke's character kind of has this secret going on, and it's very underdeveloped because we only really get a taste of what's going on in his head. And some of the motives for some of the characters also weren't entirely explained, and it's like, well, why exactly are you here? But I think this is the kind of movie where, like I said, it's solely just for fun. And if you think about it too hard, then you won't enjoy it as much, because you just have to go in and have a good time with it. Another thing is that this movie is sort of on the long side at roughly 2 hours and 12 minutes, but it did not feel long to me at all, which is definitely a good thing. And when I look at the movie in that aspect, it definitely is magnificent. I had to, Quan. You know I had to do that one. I'm gonna give The Magnificent Seven an 8 out of 10 and buy it on Blu-ray because it's such a fun movie that I definitely plan on seeing again and showing to my friends. Thank you guys so much for watching my review. If you enjoyed it, please let me know how you felt about it in the comments below and tell me what you think about The Magnificent Seven or The Magnificent Cast. I could honestly talk about Chris Pratt for hours, so if you want to just talk about how awesome he is, go for it. I recently put out a Passengers trailer reaction review if you guys want to see that. And I also uploaded several new reviews for The Light Between Oceans, Sully, and Snowden. This is such a fun movie, guys. I definitely recommend it even if you're not a fan of the Western genre. I saw this movie with my mom because she's such a fan of Byung-Hun, and she really liked it despite not liking Westerns. But anyway, that wraps it up for this review. Please subscribe if you'd like to see more of my videos, and I'll see you in the next one.